Hey, what do you think about psychology? You think it all started in a lab? Maybe it's just two chairs in a cozy room? You know, a counselor who actually listens, and a person learning to breathe again. Well, think again. What we consider psychology today is totally different from what humans considered psychology in the past. And I'm here to show you how different. Hop on the time train, because we're blasting back thousands of years. Hey, what is psychology? You know, P-S-Y.
What the fuck is that?
See? Back then, there was nothing called psychology yet. It's just philosophy with lots of debate. But ancient Greece psychology did think about the mind and how it works, but with zero experiments. Plato was like, the psyche or soul isn't just one thing. It's got three parts. First, the brainy side. The logisticon, that's where reason and logic hang out. Then, the cravings crew, the epithmeticon, basically all your wants and desires. And finally, the hype squad, the Thumedes, your emotions and your fire. Aristotle picked up where Plato left off. For him, the mind wasn't just theory. It was about using reason and observation to actually understand people and nature. Together, Plato and Aristotle basically laid the foundation for what we now call early psychology. The word itself even shows it. Psyche means soul or mind, and logos means study or reason. So, literally, psychology started out as the study of the soul. All right, that's enough grease for today. Pack your sandals. We're moving on.
Where are we?
Renaissance, where psychology continued to develop.
Wait, philosopher again?
Yup, his name is René Descartes. Oh, there he is. Hey, what do you think about the mind and the body working together? Like, are they a team?
Together. That's cute, but wrong. The mind and the body are totally separate. The mind does the thinking, the body's just a machine that follows orders. Those two interact to cause behavior. That's called dualism.
But how can an immaterial thing interact with a material thing?
The immaterial soul resides in and influences the body from the pineal gland, a part of the brain.
Yeah, but how could you know that?
Why are there so many philosophers when we talk about early psychology? What's the difference between them and psychologists?
Easy. Philosophers were basically like how we measure invisible stuff. Thoughts, feelings, vibes. Just can't exactly put that on a ruler. So early psychology was basically philosophy 2.0, not real science yet. It wasn't until humans started peeking into brains and running experiments that we got like actual science studying the mind.
So, when psychology actually became psychology?
Let's move to 1879. So here's the glow up. A German professor named Wilhelm Wundt opened the very first experimental psychology lab at the University of Leipzig. Fun fact, Wundt was the first human to actually call himself a psychologist. He and his crew started using the scientific method to poke, prod, and measure the mind. After Wundt kicked things off, psychology started branching out into all sorts of schools of thought. The first one? Structuralism, started by Edward Titchener. Structuralists were basically obsessed with breaking everything in the mind down into its tiniest pieces, or structures, and how they did it. By asking people to describe exactly what they were feeling or thinking while doing tasks, and that called introspection. Another school of thought called functionalism. Unlike structuralism, the functionalists believed that consciousness could not be broken down into parts. They believe it was a continuous and changing mental process. That's why the functionalist asked a different question than the structuralist. The structuralists care, what are the basic elements of conscious experience? The functionalist asks, what is the purpose of conscious experience? Or why the mind does certain things? Here's the deal. Functionalists aren't about breaking your brain into tiny pieces. They care about the big stuff like, why the heck do we even have emotions? Why do we fall in love? And totally mess it up. And how do all these messy human behaviors actually help us survive in the wild chaos of life? Instead of just sitting around thinking, they went straight to the source. watching humans actually think, feel, and act.
Cool. What else?
You heard about Sigmund Freud, right?
Yeah. He's terribly famous. Like, drama follows him everywhere. Controversy? Yeah, that's his brand.
Want to know why his theory's such a drama magnet? Cool. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, the neurologist named Sigmund Freud founded psychoanalysis. Hi there! What's your theory exactly about?
Unconscious thoughts, feelings, and memories.
Okay, why your life is so dramatic?
Out of here, you freak!
Freud's got this spicy brain recipe. He says your psyche's got 3 parts. The id, basically your inner savage, wants, instincts, hidden cravings, and low-key chaotic energy. While the superego as your moral compass, the part telling you, don't do that, bro, that's wrong. The ego, the middleman, the therapist of your own brain, trying to keep the savage and the angel from starting World War III. These 3 squad up to make you all the messy, weird, and beautiful behavior you do every day. Thanks to Sigmund Freud, psychologists and psychology itself actually started studying the unconscious mind. Like, what your brain is doing behind your back. He also showed that basic desires and motivations secretly run your life. For some people, they ruin their lives. And get this, he was one of the first dudes to admit that early childhood actually matters in shaping who you are as an adult. Fast forward to the early 20th century. Behaviorism rolls up like, yo, we don't care about your feelings or your messy unconscious mind. Show me what you do, then we'll talk. One OG of this crew is Pavlov, the dude who made dogs salivate on command just by ringing a bell. Behaviorists were like, psychology means studying behavior. You can't see or measure your brain dramas anyway, so let's just watch what people and dogs actually do. Jump to the 1960s. Psychologists were like,
Wait a minute!
maybe the brain is actually doing stuff while we think, remember, and make decisions. They wanted the tea on what's really going on inside your noggin, not just watching your behavior. So cognitive psychology was born. Basically, studying the brain in action, like the ultimate mental behind the scenes. Cognitive psychology is basically like, what's your brain actually up to? They study stuff like perception, decision-making, and problem-solving. Basically, all the things that make you look smart, or not. Yeah, they even bust out fancy toys like MRI machines to peek inside your skull and see which parts are bossing your behavior around. So, as we keep cruising through the history time train, you'll peep how things went from ancient Greek philosophers pondering the soul to Wundt setting up the first experimental lab, and how psychology keeps leveling up and evolving every single year. That's the end of—
Wait, what about today's psychology?
Well, back in the day when psychologists were like, I'm all about structuralism. Today's psychologists don't really pick a team like that. Now they're more like, I got my own thing, dude. Some dive into cognitive psychology, like your brain in action. Others do developmental psychology of tracking how your brain levels up from baby to adult. And then there's social psychology, basically asking, how do your squad, your culture, and your weird group chats make you act like a human? As the old school stuff stacks up, today's psychology keeps leveling up. And who knows? The future of psych? Probably gonna be even wilder. Now I gotta order a mozzarella pizza. So, see ya!